Hello, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Welcome to Uncensored, where we go in depth with a key newsmaker about issues that matter to them and matter to you. Tonight we're speaking to Australian Electoral Commission or AEC spokesperson Ekin-Smyth. Now, in addition to preparing for the upcoming federal election on May 21, the AEC has been busy on social media, responding to tweets daily and winning over praise for their unique style for any federal agency on social media, but it hasn't been without controversy. Here is that interview in full, and a reminder to follow along by live tweeting your thoughts using the hashtag 6NewsAU, in addition to supporting our work via patreon.com/6NewsAU. Ekin-Smyth, welcome to 6 News.
Thank you for having me on, Leo. Long time coming. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, look, great to have you here. Now, anyone who pays attention to Australian politics on Twitter is probably aware of the AEC and some of the controversies surrounding your social media activities in the past 5 months or so. Now, I'll get to that in a sec, but your style is pretty unique for like any brand or especially government agency I've seen, in that you respond to almost everything and interact with accounts like, I know there are individuals behind the account, but like an individual, not like a brand or a company or anything like that. What is your role in all of that, and when did your team or you decide to actually start engaging this way on Twitter?
Yeah, we're a little bit different, that's for sure, particularly amongst public service agencies. And I do get some colleagues on occasion from other agencies asking us questions about it and exactly how it operates. It's a different approach this election. It's been a manifestation, though, from what we've done previously. We were already a little bit different at the previous election in 2019. But we've been looking at international democracies. People have been questioning electoral processes more. So this is a very deliberate strategy to be active. We are the experts on the process that we run, the federal election that we deliver. We need to be an active voice in that. So if people are spreading mis or disinformation around the electoral processes, we're going to be active in dispelling it. We see that as a key role, and it's a key function of our reputation management strategy. We want to protect the reputation of the AEC because we think that's intrinsically linked to the reputation of the Australian election and people's trust in election results.
And why start engaging this way? I wasn't on Twitter for the 2019 election, but this, I presume this would be probably your most active time on social media. Why start engaging this way, other than the reasons you touched on there? Because I mean, it's easy to just respond to all the comments, but you're engaged in banter and things like that. It is really unique. So just why, and just why, really.
Yeah, good question. A lot of people ask us just why, and some people don't like it. A lot of people do, though. We're speaking like real human beings. I mean, we're a bunch of bureaucrats sitting in an office building in Canberra for the most part, but most Australians aren't. Most Australians are not public servants and don't speak like public servants. So why should we? If we want to engage with Australians, educate them about the electoral process, even have difficult conversations where people are wrong on occasion about how the election process happens, we think it's just going to cut through much better if we're doing that in simple, plain language that everybody can understand. And we're engaging a bit of goodwill, I suppose, around the Australian electoral process as well. Australian federal elections are famous for being in-person community events, that festival of democracy. There's a lot of positivity around them. We see in some online commentary that gets missed, so we're trying to inject it back in.
Have you faced much backlash, though, about all the corrections of mis and disinformation you've done? I know you had to block a couple of accounts a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we do face some backlash. I mean, anybody. I mean, I know it myself. I get told that I'm wrong. You don't like to hear it, but you try and take it in good graces. But that's not always the case when you tell somebody that they're wrong about something. And sometimes we do it in a little bit of a firm way. We get some backlash. But I think for the most part, we're doing a greater good of making sure that people don't have incorrect information about how the election is run. And we've received a heck of a lot of positivity out there from people from all walks of life. And that's a great thing. And I think that we're increasing people's knowledge of just how we run this thing, which is good.
But I guess the argument could be made that you should, if you are going to engage with all the mis and disinformation, you should just say this is true, this is the false, or just give that explanation. You shouldn't get engaged in what some might describe as snarky comments or Twitter banter or whatever some people would say. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's important that we know where the line is. Engaging online and having a really active, quick presence is tricky, especially for an independent statutory authority like us. We're speaking in the Electoral Commissioner's voice. We've got to be cognizant of that. He's very supportive of our approach, but he's giving us license to represent the Australian Electoral Commission, to represent Australian democracy in a way. So we've got to be cognizant of where that line is. Engaging people is great, educating people is great, but we've got to make sure that never do we actually impugn the political neutrality of the agency. So that's always front of mind. There's a line there. We think we tread close to it on occasion, but we believe we're staying on the right side of it.
And I mean, it's plain to see from what I've seen that a lot of the false claims that you guys are correcting does come from pretty much all sides of politics, which we'll get to in a moment. But how big do you think mis and disinformation about the Australian electoral process is on social media?
It's really hard to quantify, but it's certainly bigger than it was last electoral cycle. I personally have been around the agency for a little while now. I've got a number of federal elections under my belt, and I've been on the AEC's online channels for a long time. In the lead up to the 2019 federal election, we barely heard anybody talking about the electoral process until the election was announced. In the lead up to this federal election, as early as mid last year, we're getting lots of people talking about the election process in ill-informed ways, sometimes deliberately, sometimes not. And that's potentially dangerous. Online conversations can stay in their own little bubble, and that's fine, but they have the potential to grow. We've seen what's happened in overseas jurisdictions like the US and others. We want to be protectors of Australian democracy. If the AEC is not doing that, well, who is?
Yeah, now moving away from the social media activities of you guys, what happens now after the election is called in regards to what the AEC does? As we speak, it's been less than 5 days since Scott Morrison announced May 21 as the election date. What activities does the AEC undertake, other than, of course, correcting stuff on social media?
Yeah, our social media activities are just a voice, very small part of the operation, really. An important part, but a very small part. A federal election is really one of Australia's largest peacetime logistical events. We've got about 105,000 staff that we recruit. We've got 8,000 odd polling places, 50 million ballot papers to print, hundreds of thousands of cardboard furniture, as we refer to them, forms, more forms, logistical arrangements, postal voting to get set up, overseas voting. It's huge. It really is huge. Put the COVID overlay on top of that, very, very complex. But we're ready and we can do it. And when the election's announced, makes it a bit easier. We've got a date, so we can confirm those venues, and we have our staff and our divisional officers really working hard to make sure that we lock in all of our venues at the moment. They're hitting the phones hard as well to confirm staff now that we have dates for the timetable. Those are the key activities, as well as enrolment. We're expecting somewhere in the order of around 900,000 enrolment transactions to come through in this enrolment close of rolls week. So those are really the key activities, and it is all hands on deck. We're busy, but we're all over it.
And COVID-19 is going to be a major challenge. We have had state and territory elections in all but one state since the pandemic happened, but never a federal one. So how are you guys going to make sure everything is COVID safe, especially in regards to people who might actually be isolating on election day, and they wouldn't have had time to do a postal vote because they might have woken up on May 21, done a rat and tested positive. How can you make sure those kind of people vote?
Yeah, so there's a range of voting options available for people this federal election. Federal elections, community, in-person events, nation comes together once every 3 years or so, has their say. And so people who can come down to a polling place on election day, that's what they should be doing. And we'll be providing a COVID safe environment, of course. There'll be more COVID safety measures in place at your local polling place than your daily trip to the local shops. So you can feel comfortable to come down to a polling place. We've even got a little walkthrough video available on our AEC TV YouTube channel, so people can have a look. But people might not be able to make it on election day. We get that. The next cab off the rank is the early voting period. That starts from Monday, the 9th of May. There's a 2-week early voting period there. So people, even if they are in isolation for 7 days, they may have already voted before they go into isolation. They may be able to vote afterwards. So the early voting period is the next cab off the rank there. And then it's postal voting, which is really an emergency provision of its own. If people can't make it in person for whatever reason, they can apply for a postal vote, and applications are open right up until the Wednesday before polling day. So even if somebody is mandated to be in isolation in that last week, potentially somebody can still get a postal vote. Then it's those final 3 days. It's the Thursday, the Friday, and election day itself. So if somebody's mandated to be in isolation, they've tested positive to COVID, if you're in those 3 days, there's a telephone voting service that'll be available.
Gotcha. Returning now to the misinformation and disinformation, are there any claims that you guys see more often than others? I know I could name a few I see repeatedly, but what about you? Because you're tagged in all of this. Are there any really claims that stand out in terms of just getting repeated and repeated?
Yeah, there's some simple ones. Preferential voting is certainly a topic that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
hot
that
with
was the one I
people.
was going to suggest. Yeah.
Yeah, they get it wrong. This idea that you can waste your vote by voting for the wrong person and not really understanding how preferences flow. So that's a big one for us, and we're working on correcting that as much as possible. We've got a couple of animations that might come out soon. One for the House Reps, one for the Senate. That'll hopefully clear up and dispel some myths. And I know there's some good ones out there in the community, and of course, your own good work of explaining how these things operate. Um, Political neutrality, unfortunately, is one that we see. We'll scroll down our feed. Somebody will accuse us of being biased towards one major political party, and then the very next tweet, somebody will accuse us of being biased to the next one. If it wasn't sad, it would be funny. So there are a couple of key ones, but there's a range of things. Pencils, people think we rub them out. Of course, we don't. Polling officials are supervised at all times. There's security arrangements in place. Voting machines, we don't use them. That's lifted directly from America. So there's a range of things that we see a lot, from the innocent to the wild, wacky, and frankly a bit ludicrous.
And you briefly touched on it there. How does the AEC make sure the counting process is safe and secure?
Well, I said forms, 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 and more forms before, and they're part of it. But we have venues, counting facilities in centralised locations in each state and territory. They're very secure venues. Each person that goes in and out of those venues is clocked in, and we've got somebody at the entrance. We've got clear identification of AEC staff. Our polling officials sign a neutrality declaration. They're supervised in the conduct of their work. Party and candidate appointed scrutineers provide an extra layer of transparency. And then we've got all the materials that secure ballot papers. So purpose-built transport containers, barcoded seals which track ballot papers from point to point. We use tamper-evident tape with plastic sleeves to box them up as well. There's that many layers of security in there. It's just not feasible for somebody to be able to manipulate a ballot paper, I suppose. So we take it incredibly seriously. We often say a ballot paper is like a democratic blank check, our responsibility to cash it. So we concentrate on that a heck of a lot.
And you just touched on neutrality there in regards to the volunteers you would have on election night. Are they allowed to be members of political parties?
No, so it is a signing on as a political neutrality declaration. So that's in the conduct of your duty. Now, we all have lives. We're all voters. People are going to have political opinions. But it's about being able to sign on and say that you're going to be neutral in the conduct of your work. And people with any level of seniority, we also conduct police checks for further background on those people.
All right, just finally, I think we want to finish off with some almost rapid fire questions in regards to those claims that just keep popping up. So, yes or no answer, or just a couple of words if it doesn't require a yes or no. Just to finish off here, let's just begin. Does the AEC use voting machines in any capacity?
No.
Does the AEC have any relationship with Dominion?
No.
Will unvaccinated people be allowed to vote?
Yes.
Who chooses preferences, parties or people?
You, the voter.
Is the AEC independent?
Yes.
And can you use a pen instead of a pencil on your ballot papers?
If you want to, go for it.
All right, we'll leave it there. Evan Ekin-Smyth, thank you very much for your time. Good luck with all the process over the next few weeks. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Leo. Much appreciated.
There we go. That was Evan Ekin-Smyth from the AEC speaking to me earlier. Of course, make sure you share your thoughts by using that hashtag 6newsau or email your feedback to contact@6newsau.com and support our work via Patreon for just $4 a month at patreon.com/6newsau. Make sure you let us know who you'd like to see us interview next time right here on Uncensored. For now, though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Have a great night.